I'd like to welcome, before we start the pledge and the prayer, I'd like to welcome everybody for this joint meeting between UC Ohio and Indiana councils. And Ohio Council, to be fair, is here for a special presentation from Ball State University. So it's a very, very, very fascinating look, at least in my estimation, in what is possible through the main corridor town. So I think they did a phenomenal job that we got to witness back in December. And then the Ohio Council and Mayor certainly are welcome they're welcome to stay, but they're also welcome to leave because I know we've all got schedules that we're trying to adhere to. So, but appreciate you guys being here. So at that point, which I would like to ask everyone to please rise and we'll say the pledge. It's a flag on the screen, and then remain standing for the prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this special night. We just thank you so much for every citizen in this community, and we're not divided by a line, but yet we're united under you. We just thank you that we're able to come together this evening and see what's possible. And really, you tell us that with you, all things are possible. And really, the only limitations we put on ourselves are just that. They're the ones that we put on ourselves. So we pray for your guidance tonight and help our minds be open to what the possibilities are for this community and to help us to come together and achieve things that really just amaze us, but remind us also of what's possible. So we give you all the glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. Jan, for the Indiana side, if you wouldn't mind, roll call.
For the Indiana side? Oh. Ohio side, I don't know. Okay. Indiana side. Brandon Elmore.
Present.
Bob Leahy, not here. Jason Brewer.
Here.
Tim Heiss.
Here.
Tito Frias, not here.
All right. And I trust you guys have had a chance to review the consent agenda. Any questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I'll move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Consent agenda approved as presented. Okay, it's my honor, distinct privilege to announce Mr. Dwayne Pooter, Mayor of Union City, Ohio. And Dwayne, if you don't mind, if you want to introduce your council members to the audience.
Okay, in attendance we have Becky Newcomb, who is our clerk, and Cheyenne Tedrow, Robin Meinerdine, and we have a special guest back there, Mike Bowers from Dark County Economic Development, and then we have Police Chief Mark Ader and
Age is setting in. That's a lot.
yeah, Officer Justin
Ben,
Jordan.
Ben,
Justin Jordan, sorry.
Been there, done that. So, well, listen, thank you guys so much. Fellows, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate each of you. And with that, I will turn it over to Chris. If you don't mind, if you'd like to introduce yourself and your crew from Ball State University. And the stage is yours.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Foss. Been a long day of teaching already. Last fall, landscape architecture 401 regional planning students contacted Steve. Lauren Theme is also Tini is the professor as well. Contacted Spence about a project relating to two counties and linking those with the rails to trails, as well as some design work and projects inside both cities. It went so well, we were invited here tonight, 2 months later. And so a group of 16 students, this is a representative of 4, which I'll introduce yourselves, and I guess we'll start.
All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Kaylee, and I'm going to introduce this project for us.
Oh, much better.
So, being on our left talk about the logo, it's seen here that it's two triangles that represents the sense of community and that we're uniting the two union cities, both on the Indiana side and on the Ohio side. And the scale of this project can be broken down into three separate things. One is the main regional trail that goes between different cities throughout Indiana and Ohio. The second one would be the trail system that's within Union City. And the third one would be a proposed park that kind of anchors the whole project. So I'm going to start with the main trail design, and it's dedicated to converting the decommissioned rail line into a multimodal trail system that serves several communities that can access it. So we did a deep history dive into Union City, and I'm sure many of you know a lot of the historical values that you guys hold here. And we really wanted to piece all of that tissue together and bring this culture together from the racing connections to the railroad and automotive and agriculture and a lot of the big industrial side of Union City. So our vision statement for the big overall main trail for this project would be that Union City is a home to a rich industrial history and provides prime opportunities to bridge the gap between Indiana and Ohio. And we want to revitalize this rail line, uniting surrounding areas and weaving together fractured spaces to help foster community engagement in both Union City and the surrounding areas. So our goals for this first part would be implementing safe design practices, providing useful amenities for both the community along the trail, and creating thresholds and appropriate places. Here is a master plan of the regional design. It would start in Saratoga, Indiana, make its way along the old decommissioned rail line into Union City, and then back out again and end in Williamson, Ohio. So this is kind of the gateway and the opening to this trail that you would see it throughout every city that you would pass through. This section shows how users of the trail will be greeted as they pass through one city to the next. And we propose that it is a 20-foot wide trail that takes up the space of the old decommissioned rail line. On the edges would be a 5-foot pedestrian path, and on the center of it would be a 10-foot cyclist path. And on different sections throughout the trail, we would have rest stop areas that would be designed for people to take a break from their activity while giving them an option to learn about the history of Union City or locate where they are on the map.
Somebody's laptop?
So this is a detailed typology of what the rest point would look like in relation to the trail. And you can see that people are interacting with it, using it, the amenities that are there, and how people are using the trail as well. And then another value that we have for this project would be the planting design. So the plant palette was carefully selected in order to show a variety of colorful native plants throughout all seasons to help ensure visibility, smaller and less dense vegetation, and also incorporating the ecological aspect of this. We're also going to be help with biodiversity and doing a lot more than just providing you with the trail, but we're also helping the environment as well. And this is what the color palette could look like throughout all seasons. We really wanted to focus on colors of red and white to help symbolize the school colors here in Union City. And then also show that throughout each season, whether you're using the trail in wintertime, spring or summer or fall, there would be some pop of color. This is what a perspective of the trail would look like as it is in the daytime and the nighttime as it is crossing major roads. We implemented other safe practices such as bollards and light fixtures to help guide people and tell cars when to stop and things like that. And then throughout the trail, there's different crossings at different points, whether they're bridges or railroads, and we took that into account And then this is what a design would look like for when you cross over an active railroad. You have the gates, and then we also implemented other bollards to help tell people when to stop. And there is an overpass pedestrian bridge, and I'm sure most of you know where this bridge is on Jackson Pike, the big bright red bridge. We propose that this is a good spot for people to gather and overlook the existing rail line. And then we also designed different site elements, such as signages and mile trackers, to help show you where you are and achieve everything that you would want to do on the trail. And this is a detailed section of what our design would look like. And then these are the mile markers as well. So the numbers are nice and big, and they would glow up at night, and then the logo is still tied into it too. And now I'm going to pass it off to Isaac to talk about the trail system within Union City itself.
Move that up a little. All right, so Kaylee just got done telling you guys about kind of the biggest scale of this project, and that's how the trail would connect different cities and even different states. So it's kind of that bigger scale of how this will connect to a bigger context than just Union City and Union Village. So now I'm going to zoom in to Union City, and we're going to look at how the trail will kind of interact within the city and how it will really work to tie the city together. We'll go to the next slide. You can go to the next one. Okay, so the 3 goals for this portion of the project are kind of similar to the main one, but they have little nuances as you go. So providing a sense of connection, and that's something that was in the vision statement. That's something that runs through the whole project. That's kind of like the main goal of the project, is to really provide a great sense of connection. And celebrating that character and the history of Union City. There's a lot of rich history here, and not that we need to live in the past, but just taking pieces of that history and celebrating it and using that as inspiration to keep pushing forward. And then providing infrastructure to make the city more walkable and connected. So not just seeing the trail as just like an amenity that is fun to use, but kind of seeing it as something that could change the way that people live their daily lives, how they get from point A to point B, and it would just change the whole kind of landscape of what is here now. You can go to the next one. Okay, so we're kind of thinking about how this trail would connect, and we're thinking about sub-trails that would kind of branch out, you see it in veins or whatever, how it branches out and goes to the rest of the city. So we were thinking of different things we need to, what's important to connect to, basically. So we thought about 5 major categories that are things we were focusing on. If we're going to put a sub-trail somewhere, what does it need to give you access to, kind of thing. So parks and green space, any existing parks around, obviously we were focusing on that and how those connected. Any big commercial areas like Columbia Street and different large commercial areas, obviously the school system and educational areas, and you can go to the next slide. And then obviously residential neighborhoods, so that people could at least be within a 5-minute or 10-minute walking distance of the trail, so it kind of make sure to try to capture everybody. And then medical facilities as well. So here's kind of an inventory and analysis of where those connections are, just things highlighted. And of course, as you push forward in this project, I'm sure there might be some things that are missed or things that pop up that are new. So this is just kind of what we pulled together, but we tried to pick out just interesting spots and important spots. Go to the next one. And then this just gives just a picture of what that walking distance is like from the main trail, what 5 minutes is like. A 5-minute walking distance really captures a good amount of the town, and then 10 minutes even more so. And then the master plan is kind of split. I wanted to zoom in so you could really see it. But so these are the streets that we chose. So obviously there's not just a bunch of open space to just build trails like there is on the rail. So you kind of have to use the existing infrastructure of the streets that are there to kind of, you have to redo kind of the streetscapes to help accommodate the trail and just create a more safer and more connected area. So we chose different accesses throughout the trail, to Harder Park, kind of at the end of the town, so you can get from one end to the to the pool or whatever's up there. Maybe at Jackson Pike, Walnut Street seemed like a good connection straight up to the school, and then straight down, it's a good connection to get from each side of that railroad track. You can go to the next one. And then like East Oak, Sycamore gets you up to this corner and to the East Side Park, and then First Street down to that residential area. So when we're, like every street is different basically. Like every street has a different right-of-way width. Every street has a different condition that is there now. So you can't just do a one-fits-all solution. There's kind of, like we developed some different typologies that could be implemented where there are differences. So I'm gonna move into those. You can skip this one. So the first typology, which provides, it's kind of the most like ideal typology, and it fits on streets like Walnut, Division, Columbia, and then parts of Oak, were the streets that they provided pretty much like the most room for change. So you can go to the next slide. So here's just like a general view of what it might look like. So you would still have street parking. You would have, I think it was 24-foot wide street, so still a pretty good street width. And then it even provides like a barrier in between the street and the trail. It gives, a little pop of green that kind of softens up things and is like a good safety feature between the trail and the street. And then it also had, and then everywhere we provided one lane for bike traffic and one lane for pedestrian to kind of divide that up. And as you can see on the trail, which we'll see it a little bit better later, but on the main trail, there's kind of a brick inset that kind of is like that railroad. So like you're on the trail. It's not just like a normal concrete path. So this is a general look at the first one. So now I'm going to go into sections, and these sections just show how the typology will fit on the streets that we picked, just to show that like it is possible that this typology can fit here, and it's not just like a random guess or whatever. So this is what it would look like on Walnut Street, and I picked a spot next to the Hoosier Place apartments, so it still gives like a wide enough street parking, 2 lanes. Go to the next one. Here's what it looks like on Division Street. I know Division is a one-way, so it might look a little different there. Next, and then so the second typology, we call this residential because this was like kind of like in those residential outskirts where there may have not been an existing sidewalk or something like that, but this is a pretty simple one. So this one doesn't give as much space, so there's not like street parking, but it still provides a separation between like the bikes and people and the cars, just to give you that safety aspect. So here's what it looked like on like First Street, and then Sycamore Street, and then South Street. And then the third one, I know the orange might be kind of hard to read. It's only in 2 spots. This is where there's no street present. So if it went through like an alleyway or out by Harder Park, that actually allowed for like more of like an open lot space to put a trail on. So these 2 are the third typology. Should go to the next one. And so this one gives you a little bit more opportunity for like some like urban design elements, like planters or like vegetated walls or different things like that. You could really do some cool stuff in some of these places. So, here's like Oak Street. I know there's like an empty lot, so like maybe that becomes a park one day, and then this trail goes right through it. And the residents that live on it is kind of like right next to them, and so it kind of connects there. And then like the Harder Park entrance, you could really liven that up and make a good entrance into the park, which is a important part of the town. And then the final, which this is only for like the most like urban parts of the city, so like right in downtown. So this is a shared street. You may have heard about shared streets before. They're becoming more popular, but you could go to the next one. So this is really working to kind of break down that barrier between cars and people. So that's why it's only like in select spots right in downtown, like where all the action is. So it really kind of shrink that street. You could make it, brick paving, really highlight, the center of the city. And as you can see, there's only bollards. There'd be no curb. It's just bollards that would be kind of dividing it. And anytime you have like festivals or anything like that, this provides a great opportunity to easily turn that street into a space that could be used by people. And again, it's like just in that downtown and really highlights that downtown. And so that's kind of a section view of what it would look like. Maybe there's more room for tables and chairs like out on the street. and people can feel safe walking across it freely because it's kind of a slower moving zone. So, all right. So now I'm going to move into the details of this. So that's like the overall how it's going to be laid out, kind of the logistics of that. And so these are the details of the trail. Kind of what Kaylee talked about with signage, like pavement patterns, and that really providing the sense of place, right? So like this is a special thing, and that's how it it's connecting me to a greater context and all that. You can skip this one. So here's like the pavement patterns of the trail. The bike path could be like a simple asphalt pavement with 2 lanes, like traditional and safe, and then that brick pedestrian walk that I talked about. Just a simple pattern that could really highlight the history of the railroad. It's good. It's sound effects. It's sound effects. So that was the pavement. Here's like the signage. It would be very similar to what's on the main trail. Of course, the main trail will be slightly different because it's in a greater context. But then Union City, like every city, but like starting in Union City, but every city from here on out could like take part in this after, and they would all have their own logo, their own set of signage, their own lighting. But when you're in Union City, you would see something like this. You could have like trail map signage, wayfinding signage to let you know like the library's in a half a mile, or then you'd have like educational signage. Maybe there's an important spot in the city where something awesome happened, like the old Coke bottling factory was here. Here's a sign that tells you about it. And then you could have like safety signage, just letting people know like this is bike, this is pedestrian. And then like at crossings, like you need to yield. And then the lighting, like obviously there's many options for lighting. This was one we chose that kind of maybe spoke to like kind of that industrial look. Like maybe it's too modern, maybe it's not, like, but just picking that lighting for safety, of course, and then also again just to highlight this is a place, you're on the trail, sort of thing. So this map is highlighting like all of the nodes of the trails, like everywhere where trails intersected. The red ones are where the trails intersect with that main trail, and then the blue ones are just where there's kind of turns in the trail. And these spots are important because they help like introduce people onto the trail. Like if you're coming from out here and you hit that node, like that's a special spot where maybe people could linger a little more, and more information could be provided there. So if you go to the next slide, here's kind of what those nodes might look like. So the left one's like off the main trail, but just a nice little like plaza spot where there's some seating, some plantings, some signage, just to let you know where you're at, where you can go. And then the other one's like kind of where the trail would turn. Again, just creating a little spot where people could linger. And then the final thing that I'll talk about is, so right here, so obviously Artisan Park is obviously an important spot already. And it's kind of the center of the Indiana side. And so, in a second, I'll pass it over to the next group who will be talking about Railroad Park, which is on the Ohio side. And so this connection right here is extremely important for really tying over the state line and even over the railroad track as well. And we saw it as a great opportunity for something cool here. Because right now you would have to cross over a street, then a railroad track, then a street. And I think that it would be hard to feel truly connected with those barriers in place. So we proposed a pedestrian bridge. So here's kind of a plan of like how it could be laid out. It would just be like an elevated walk. The slopes up to it would be ADA accessible, so there would be no barriers there. But it just gets you up over the streets. It gives you a very different perspective of the city. And it also just eliminates those barriers and really makes these two parks, kind of pulls them together and really makes a center for everyone, not just the Indiana side, but the Indiana and Ohio, and would really support, the mending that you're trying to do. So that's the plan. Here's like kind of like an axon view of kind of how it would set coming out of Artisan Park, going over and then going down into Railroad Park. You can go to the next one. So these two are like kind of how you would go up on the bridge. So the left side is if you're in Artisan Park and you're going up over, and then the right side is in Railroad Park. You can go to the next one. So most of the bridge is just like a pretty simple elevated walk, but obviously there's a great opportunity when you're passing over that state line to do something special, to do something artful. So as you can see at the bottom of the screen, as you move, you see Indiana starts to turn into something different. So when I walk up from Artisan Park, I'm going up over I'm in Indiana and I'm starting to head over to Ohio. I can see Indiana and I can see it kind of changing. And then same thing on the Ohio side, I'm going up, I see Ohio and I see it kind of changing. And that's really to just like symbolize that, like that connection and the molding together of the two parts. So you can go to the next slide. And then here's just kind of like a rendering of just what it might look like. And just think that's a really important opportunity to really make that connection. So you can go to the next one. So yeah, so I'm done talking now. That was the sub-trails. So that's how the trail would connect in Union City and really bring everything together, tie everything together. So now I'm going to move down to Railroad Park, which is kind of like the soul of the project, where like all this heritage and all this stuff really comes together. So I'm going to pass it to Peyton and Molly.
Hello. Sorry. Oh, he's tall. Hi, I'm Peyton. We are moving on now to Railroad Park. Like he said, kind of the heart and soul of the project. All the trails, they all meet here in the center. So for Railroad Park, we kind of recognize that the opportunities here are limitless, like absolutely limitless potential. So our approach to this was to create 3 different ideas for what this park could be. We kind of focused on, we could have like a nature oasis, focusing on regrowth and revival in Union City, really focusing on the natural sides of parks. And then we have a 2050 Railroad Park, which is community reimagined. Like, what's the modernist idea of what a park could be? And then we have Junction Park, which is looking back at history and really taking into account all of that rich history that Union City has. Okie doke. Some of our goals and objectives here, we wanted to create spaces for community gathering. These parks, they really connect everything, but where are they going? We want people to come together here and create a space for everyone to gather to really get that community engagement going. We also wanted to establish a sense of place within the communities of Union City. So as you see, we use these signages and the logos, and we really try to hammer it home like this is Union City. We're really creating that anchor point, that sense of place within the communities of Union City. And then we wanted to strengthen the connection between Indiana and Ohio. I know he said that Railroad Park is on the Ohio side, but we're kind of considering this a neutral zone. This is just Union City. We're trying to blur that state line, just really create a central anchor point to like, this is us. Here's kind of a vicinity map. We chose this space between North State Line and Sycamore Street, so you can see how that kind of ties into all of the sub-trails and the main trail. We kind of took an inventory of what was in this area. We've got the active railroad going by, which is, again, super symbolic to who Union City is, and we wanted to incorporate that absolutely. We have the state line connection. We have residential areas that we really want to connect to. We want to establish some boundaries, though, and say this is the park and that's your house. So that was a big part of our goal as well. So that's where we are. And, of course, the Greenway is still continuing through this. So, it's a pass-through place, but it's also a sit and rest place. So I'm going to pass it on to Molly to talk about the Nature Oasis.
Alrighty, my name is Molly. So the first design that we came up with was a nature oasis. We figured you guys have a really great nature area over in Harder Park. Why not add to the ecological benefits you guys could give back? So the nature oasis site plan, it starts off with, on the west side, we have a prairie with like tall grasses and flowers in the spring, and tall grasses would last all the way through the winter as well, so that creates that great winter interest. And that leads into a woodland area in the middle with lots of trees, providing plenty of shade. That leads into a small pond with a boardwalk, plaza, community garden, all sorts of stuff. We have some planned enlargements I'll be showing in a second. This is the main plaza that's on the southern side of the park. It would connect into that connector trail that goes down First Street. So there would be seating opportunities for any sort of events or food opportunities you wanted to bring in, as well as a community garden so people could come in, grow vegetables. There's a prep station and shed in that area, as well as to the right we would have sort of a nature play space, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Next slide. On the far east side of the property, we would have a small parking lot to provide for anyone that needed to drive instead of taking the trails. And that would lead into the memorial garden. So I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the site as it exists, but there are lots of memorabilia scattered around. And so we tried to create a space for those things to relocate them into one area and create a sense of space instead of the scatteredness that they were before. So that would provide a space for that next to the open lawn, providing plenty of seating and opportunities for community gathering. So this is a little bit more of the community garden. You can see there would be nice trees overhead to provide shade for some areas, but then some parts would stick out as well to create a blended of shaded plots and sun plots to provide for lots of different plants you could grow. Right, and then the nature play space, it's kind of small, but if you guys aren't familiar with that, it's play space is made out of natural materials. Instead of playground equipment, you won't see slides and seesaws, you'll see boulders and logs to provide people that physical connection to nature, because that's the most important part of being outside. And then this shows just the walk along the prairie and the woodland intersection, so you'd be able to experience being in open spaces and more closed spaces and having that contact with nature. And the last thing to show you guys are some perspectives. So once again, contrasting the open space with the closed space. The key thing in the prairie space on the left is the train that goes right by it. When I was visiting Union City for the first time, I remember standing in that park and the train going by and that wind just smacking me in the face. And this grass would offer a great interaction with that wind, that sound, the feeling, watching the waves go across the grass would be a little slice of nature right in your own backyard. All right, the second concept we have is the 2050 park. This one's a little bit harder to explain. It's an abstract idea of modern day urban slices of park life. So when you go to New York City and you're walking along and you find a pocket park, we want this to look the same. We want this to represent the future of what Union City could be 50 years down the road. All right. So as you can see on this one, we also have parking in the same area as the last spot, and there's a bus station over there as well to provide for more access around the city and allow more people to come. The trails meander throughout the side, having a less active northern edge near the railroad, and then on the west side we have all sorts of modern equipment such as interactive sculptures, playgrounds, clock tower plaza, reflection basins, and train stations so people could interact with the history as well as moving forward. So this is a little bit of an enlargement of that area. There would be a clock tower in the middle, which I have a picture of later you guys will be able to see. And that would hopefully reflect on that reflecting pond, providing an area for people to picnic, hang out, meet up. Like, let's go meet at the clock tower. Everyone's going to know where that is. As well as the train station plaza, where people would be able to view trains that go by and immerse themselves in that experience. And then this is on the southern end of the property. This is more of the community play area. So once again, we have a community garden with a storage shed, some shade structures, and a basketball court to provide a structured activity for people to participate in while they're here. Here's that clock tower I was talking about. So it would be designed to be a statement piece right in the middle to really draw people to it, to start conversations. And then this is a cross-section of that more active space, so there'd be lots of trails, trees, the basketball court, garden, so just like all sorts of community interaction and engagement there. And then once again, this shows the bus stop, so that would provide lots of connections, as well as being right next to a parking lot to provide opportunities for people to come from all over the city or surrounding cities. And then here's some perspectives of that park. You can see the clock tower once again surrounded by those grasses, and the playground that you'd kind of be coming in over off of the State Line Bridge. So people would immediately be drawn into that park to experience a little slice of the future. And for the third park, I'll be passing it back to Peyton.
Awesome. All right, this is Junction Park, which really takes into account lots of the rich railroad history that Union City has. This is the big plan. As you can see, going left to right, this park was taking inspiration from the railroad. So you have the main Greenway Trail that still continues through, and then these other pathways that kind of branch off, like a junction on a railroad. Isn't that fun? Little play on words. So on the left here, we have the entry plaza where the bridge will kind of descend into this park, and then it also connects with the Union City Gateway Trail that is still existing on the ground. You come through, there's lots of woodland regrowth. We wanted to really establish, like, yes, this is a park, but we also really value those vegetated boundaries. You come through, kind of have that rain garden that's flying through the site. A big kind of focus point is this picnic plaza. Just like a large expanse of community gathering space. You see the logo in the center there. Just like a place where people can come together. Maybe you hold an event here and it's like, let's all meet on the logo plaza. And then we also have the train viewing platform because that's a big part of it, kind of watching the trains go by. We also have some places for, kids. We got the splash pads and playgrounds and basketball courts, all the things that you would expect in a park, to kind of a destination there. Open lawn for regular play. We do include the Railroad History Trail, kind of like the Memorial Garden that was mentioned before. We take that memorabilia that's existing and we put it along this Railroad History Trail so that you can really walk through history, see what Union City is made of. And then we also incorporated a community garden aspect to, of course, nod to the agriculture history here and to provide, a community garden. Everybody loves those. And then, of course, the parking lot and different restroom amenities. This is taking a closer look at that entry plaza. This is a little bit of a challenge because you have like 3 different entry points into this park. So how do you really tie everyone together that's coming down the stairs or the ramp or even that are still on the ground? And also a big nod to history. We want to have this like old locomotive replica in the middle there that all the kids can look at, maybe climb on. We haven't decided yet if we want them to touch it, but it's there if they want to look at it. And we also have beautiful flower beds and rain gardens that, again, really emphasize the ecological value as well. And then this is the picnic plaza. I'll have some perspectives of this later, but it's a really interesting place for community gathering. And you can sit there, maybe you work north of the railroad and you want to come down and have your lunch while the trains go by. And of course you can watch those up on the train viewing platform. There they go. Here's some key maps and sections of what that path through the rain garden would look like. We kind of took some from the first volume. We kind of stole their gateway trail and incorporated it here because, we're tying everything together. So you'll have the same gateway that you see walking down the original greenway, you're going to see here again to kind of say, this is all coming together. this is the anchor point. And of course, it's surrounded by rain gardens, which hopefully will have the same beautiful effect that Molly's Prairies do. And also, of course, low-impact development, rainwater management, all that good stuff. And here is a look at that railroad history trail. You've got the vertical aspects of the big woodland on your left. You see the train over there on the left that's going by. And then the beautiful prairie expanse as well. So just some looks about what you might experience in this park. And then we have the most active central space. You see the over to the left, you have the restrooms and maybe a concession stand for the community basketball games. I don't know, whatever you can imagine here. You got those gateways, the picnic plaza. Really, the possibilities here are endless. And of course, here are some perspectives. On the left here, you see what that entry plaza might look like as you're coming down. You've got these, beautiful planted expanses. Interest from the plants all year round. That locomotive in the back there, what that might look like. And then on the right, again with the typologies, that is the logo that has been turned into a sculpture. And maybe that's a photo opportunity. Take a selfie in front of that. Say, look where I am. Just really saying, this is Union City. You're not going to find this anywhere else. This is unique to us. So all 3 concepts for the Railroad Park, really we wanted to express the essence of Union City. Say, this is the town that you're proud of and we want it to show here. We want to create that sense of place, create a space for community engagement, for everybody to come together, and a place that's unique to here, your home. So thank you so much. We had so much fun doing this, so we're going to open that up for questions. Oh.
Have everybody give them a round of applause. That's a lot of work. They didn't have to be here tonight after being in class all day long, and that's a lot of work they put into this. So I'm curious, does anybody have any thoughts, questions?
When will this be done?
that was Steve's question.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's impressive, isn't it? I'm just going to offer up some of the things that stood up to me when I got to see this, because I got to watch it in December, a couple weeks, I think it was right before you guys' finals, wasn't it? Yeah, so it was a madhouse over at Ball State, obviously, and some of the things that stood out to me, which I love, number one, obviously, is just reimagining this space downtown through the main corridor of the state. You know, for 150 years, we've treated the line as a barrier. It's this side and that side. So them and us, Ohio, and and it's ridiculous. It's actually, instead of being a barrier, it's actually a huge opportunity, for us to think differently and promote something like they said that no one else has. No one else has a state line running through their community. That's pretty cool. Obviously, the other thing that stood out to me was the emblem. I thought that was cool. I just think it's because it's two train cars hitched together. But it's also, to me, it almost could look like two hands coming together, shaking. So I thought that was clever. And then another thing, and this is just because I'm slow often, the artwork above the State Line Bridge, I did not know what I was looking at when I first saw that. I was like, I thought there was something wrong with the screen because it was wobbly there for a second. But the morphing from Indiana to Ohio and vice versa was fascinating. I thought that was excellent. It was extremely well done because it shows that transition, if you will, from one state to the other, which is, to me, I think that's something pretty cool. So, but that's all stood out to me. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts.
Why is this being presented to us?
Why is it being presented to you? Great question. Because I actually, where's Chris at? I think I sent you an email when I sent something to JP, and JP connected us, correct? Right. Okay, JP Hall was the one, his grad students were the ones that did the design for Vision Corner. And that project took off from there. And I got to thinking about, it's like the trail coming down through town, and we've been having discussions around the county about, how do we get the trail established? Well, we got to take care of our own backyard in Union City and make sure that our trail's well established. But it's like, how can we take it a step further and make it a place that is so cool that people from other areas are like, well, we got to get to Union City. I don't care where we start on the trail, but I got to make sure we go through Union City. It's got to be something that draws folks. It's got to be something that's different, something that's unique, something that's special, something that's kind of spectacular. And so I was like, well, I threw it up to JP. I was like, I've been thinking about this. Do you have any thoughts? And that's when he suggested Chris. Chris and I connected, and then Chris made the trip over on his own dime and own time to come over and take a look and kind of survey the land. And he fell in love with, I'm not putting words in your mouth.
You do great.
Okay, I was going to say, because that's what you told me. You went back and was like, oh my gosh, no. But he fell in love with the opportunity and the possibilities through that, because there is a large swath of land down through the middle of our community that, and this falls on both sides, we just really don't do much with. We don't. We got this huge lot on the west side of the depot that's sat empty for decades. We got this huge area on the high side that I used to cross over as a kid walking to school from Main Street to the east side that is still just sitting there. It's almost like waiting to be developed, waiting to be something that this community could make happen and be something that nobody else in not just the counties, but the region could lay claim to. They'd have to come here to see it and experience it, but it would be ours. It'd be in our own backyard. Would this take a boatload of work and dollars? Oh, you bet. Would it take a lot of headaches and blood and sweat and tears? Yeah, I'd take that too. But don't tell me for a second it's not possible. And more than anything, the reason why I have you here is because I want you to experience what they helped me experience, and that is to think differently and to start the wheels turning. Okay, what could we do? Could we pull this off, or could we at least pull off some semblance of it that really not only unifies the community, but draws people here? Because for God's sake, I got to see what's going on in Union City because it's different. There's something happening. And so if we think like that, if we have an open mindset on what might be possible, I guarantee you, you're going to achieve more today than what you did yesterday. But if we have a fixed mindset or closed mindset, we're like, that's nice, but it's always been this way, so then it's always going to be that way. And don't complain about things not changing because we're not doing anything to enact change. So, and I'm not saying this to any one individual or any one entity, this is for the collective group in this room, that what this is a daunting, but yet very clear opportunity.
Oh, it's a great opportunity. That would, I mean, I don't want to sit here and see all this and then like, bye-bye.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I want you guys to have copies of this, because the way this would have to work, obviously, or could work, is, I mean, we want the input of all the minds in this community to say, okay, love this, gotta have this, not sure about that. That may be a 2050 thing for sure. This could happen next year if we put our minds to it. You know, and start to break it down and phase it out. Okay, what do we want this to look like, and how do we get there? And I guarantee there's enough people in the area that if they really want this to happen, if we really want this to happen, it'll happen. That's all there is to it. I mean, don't think that this community got here on its own. Jeremiah Smith said, you know what, I think there's something possible here, so I'm gonna go ahead and set up roots here. That's how Union City started. I guarantee there were a few people who thought he was a nut job back in the day, because all he was in was a few open fields with a bunch of trees. But he foresaw the railroads coming through. He had inside knowledge that the railroads were eventually gonna meet here. It's like, you know what, there's possibilities here. So what are we gonna do with it? So I've said enough to say all I can say is that thank you, and I hope you guys never stop doing things like this and dreaming, because that's when cool things start. So hats off to you. All right. Well, Chris, thank you very much. And we do have the presentation that we'll get to you guys. So we've got, so thank you guys, safe travels, awesome job. So with that, we will go ahead and conduct the rest of our meeting. Like I said, you guys are more than welcome to stay, but I absolutely don't expect you.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks for having us.
All right. Okay. Department reports. I don't have any at the current time. Jan, do you have anything?
No.
Council members. Tim?
I don't have anything at this point.
Jason?
I do not.
Brandon?
Just a couple of things from the recycling district. We've got, they're asking for another community member for the Citizens Advisory Committee that meets basically once a year, gives input, you know, from a community perspective on, you know, the recycling district. So they're looking for somebody. Elizabeth Balestra has served in that capacity from Union City, I think for the past year or two. But that was one thing that they were asking for from the community.
So we need a volunteer from someone in the community to serve on the advisory committee?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be from Union City. It's
Oh,
just
okay.
open to anybody in the county.
Anybody in
but,
Randolph
it's
County,
Somebody,
okay.
yeah.
Gotcha.
We've had somebody from Union City previously. So.
Awesome, okay.
Another question that they had was the recycling bins at the end of Howard Street. They were taken outside of, I guess, the fenced-in area. I don't know if anybody knows about that, but I'm assuming it's because they can be accessible then at all times.
Right.
Was that the reason, or does anybody? Yeah.
Right.
That's what I told them, and I thought that's exactly what.
The recycling bins have never been inside the fenced-in area.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Oh, maybe they just assumed they were.
Well, they were behind the one fence that wasn't normally closed, but now they're closing that area farther, so they just were moved out to where they're fully accessible.
Okay. They asked me about it, and I said I don't know anything about them being moved, but I assume that they're just
behind the lot.
Okay.
The
Okay.
recycling bin.
All right. That's all I had today.
Okay, well, appreciate it. Steve?
I have nothing.
Okay. Ordinance 2023-01, which is the salary ordinance amendment. This is the changes for emergency personnel. This is on the second reading. There have been no changes to the amendment since it was first passed. If there are no questions or comments, I would entertain a motion.
There's no questions, I'll move we accept ordinance 2023-01 salary ordinance amendment by title only on second reading.
We have first, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Jan, if you would, roll call vote.
Brandon Elmore,
Yes.
Jason Brewer.
Yes.
Tim Heiss.
Yes.
And ordinance number 2023-02, which is the ordinance amending section 92.22 of the City of Union City Code of Ordinances on the first reading.
This is the fireworks
This is
ordinance.
The addition.
Correct.
To the fireworks.
For the safety measures.
Yes.
I know Tito had concerns or feedback or wanted to review this further. I'm not sure if that's something we maybe want to table until he's back in attendance, or do we have any concerns about moving forward with it on
Well,
first
we're on
reading?
first reading.
Yeah, that's what.
So, providing he's able to be at the second reading, we can address, if he's got any concerns, we can address it.
That
We
works
can
for
go
me too,
forward.
yeah, yeah.
If he doesn't have any, if we don't see a reason to change, then we'd have it through the first reading, so. If you guys are comfortable with it.
Yeah, I had no problem with it last time, so.
Steve, had you had a further communication with him? over
I
that?
asked for some clarification. I didn't really get a response. And nobody has brought up anything since our last meeting, so.
Like I say, and he may be a little clearer on what he was looking at also,
But you're absolutely right. I mean, we got a second reading that should be in attendance with next time, so if he has any.
So would you care to motion?
yeah, if you guys don't have any objection, I'll move we accept ordinance 2023-02, ordinance amending 92.22 of the Union City Code of Ordinances on the first reading by title only.
We have a first, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Jan, if you would, roll call vote.
Brandon Elmore,
Yes.
Jason Brewer,
Yes.
Tim Heiss.
Yes.
If Tito would not be at the next meeting, then we need to table the second
Wait,
reading
yeah,
until
yeah,
the next
that's a good-
following.
Yeah, that's
Um,
at least it gets us that much farther along.
Exactly, right. The 2023 comprehensive plan, any thoughts, additions, corrections? Well, and that's actually another thing that I would rather have before we'd officially adopt it, since it's not an ordinance, so you adopt it in one motion. It's not like, so I mean, I'd assume we actually table that, so that we give them an opportunity if they had thoughts.
On the
comprehensive
okay.
plan, as opposed to approving it tonight.
After combing through it word by word, no, I'm kidding. I've skimmed through it, but it's.
Yeah, it is
But
comprehensive.
it's been a work in progress over the years. And
Exactly.
I think it's, but yes, I think that's fine to table that.
New business, and this is a quirky one. Annexation of farmland in Park Avenue. Just to give you guys insight, I still, for the life of me, don't know how this happened, but there's a actual small splotch of land in the middle of a housing development that was not a part of that entire development. It was never annexed. And we don't even know how that's even possible. And so
Talking about the Park Avenue, or the other one.
Well, there's.
I know
these
that
two
there's
different issues,
two
aren't they?
annexations,
Okay,
yeah.
you want to take this one?
So it's almost like an island, isn't it?
So basically, there's a strip of land that's in the middle of the housing development.
Oh, okay. That got missed.
The setback, when we go to send the notices for the public hearing, the only person that's going to receive a notice is the guy who was building the houses, and he owns all the property. So that part of this annexation is somewhat ridiculous. So, but we still need you guys to approve the annexation, and it needs to pass so we can move it forward and get it done. The properties on Park Avenue is a little bit different, but the only two people affected in that are Ricky Ward, the builder for the housing development, and myself. So those properties need to be annexed because Ricky bought the property, built the house, he's getting ready to list the house and sell it, and the county informs him that he's unable to sell the property because technically it's in Wayne Township and the house has to be built on 2.5 acres or more. So if we don't annex the properties in, then he can't sell that house that he just built.
That's interesting.
And again, when we send that notice, there'll be nobody that opposes the annexation because it needs to happen so that we can keep moving forward.
Was there a third track or third yellow box here?
I gotta look at what you're looking at.
That's the house.
Help with that.
Yep.
So you've got a lot in that drawing. The southernmost lot, that is an actual parcel that for some reason it was owned by, yeah, that's it right there. It was owned by Dune Buggy Park, and then it was transferred to the city back in like 1987. And then when all of that was annexed in, somehow that lot was missed. And that happened in the late 90s, I think, maybe. So our Moten Associates, so the county, as far as the county is concerned, the only thing that needs to be annexed in that drawing is that lot, that southernmost lot. Now, Moten Associates, through their research, say that the top, so that there's a little strip of land north of that, and then to the northeast there's another horizontal strip of land that's outlined in yellow, and they say that that's also not been annexed. So even though the county says that those have been annexed, just to be on the safe side, we're just going to go ahead and ask to have those annexed too. And then we have the house or the lot next to Steve's. So, which is not on that picture. It's
Different.
yeah. So, and also what I think is interesting is apparently there was another Park Avenue there to the north, which
Yeah,
is
there is. There was another Park Avenue. It's on the old map that I just got at the city building.
yeah.
Somebody just gave me a map from like the early 1900s, and Park Avenue, where it's at currently, is not where it was on the original map in Garden City.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So, yeah, this process is just so, basically it's just to shore this up with the county. So the county lets us, start building on those and sell the house that is next to Steve's lot.
Correct. And just to be clear, if we don't do this, the builder cannot pull a permit. So this is like a technicality that we just have to get through.
Yeah. That's not a big deal, but that horizontal one on the north, that almost looks like the ditch.
Yeah.
Swale that's in there, the drainage.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Moten Associates tried to explain it to me. I didn't really get it, but I mean, I trust them. I mean, I trust them.
That might be why it got singled out at some point.
That's right.
But it needs to be annexed. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what I need to do today is simply just we're filing this with the council, and then there's a timeline that I've given to Jan as far as noticing, and our next, not the next meeting, but 2 meetings, then we have you'll vote on it. You'll vote on the annexation. So, there'll be a
Public hearing.
on that date also. So I'm sure that since it's only affecting one person, it probably won't show up. By law, we have to do it.
Yeah, Jan, do we just need a consensus to move forward?
We don't need to do anything tonight. I mean, he
Okay.
presented it to council. I'll put the notice in for the public hearing.
Okay.
As far as what we do, we don't vote on it till
Okay.
after
Till
the
the
public
public,
hearing.
after, okay.
Yeah.
Very
So
good.
it's been presented, and
So that's
Are there any questions on it? I mean, Ricky stopped by and asked me today if he needed to come to the meetings, and I told him I didn't think so, because he's the only one really being affected.
I mean, his corporation already owns this land, in this picture, and it already owns the one next to you too. So
Does that include yours too? I don't have it.
we're gonna have to do yours at a later date.
No, we can't.
Yeah,
Whatever.
yeah.
Is it what that included is or not?
It does not at this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm fine with that too.
Yeah, right.
So I don't need to do it all at the same time. Just get it done.
all right.
He can, but I don't think he did the paperwork.
Oh, okay.
Conflict of interest forms.
Okay, there's 4 people. We do this every year because we have 4 employees that work for the city, but they also do work outside of their job. So they're just declaring that they do that and making it known because it's a requirement. So those 4 people were in your packets. I believe it was Cindy Mink, Tim K.I.S.S, Not Good, and John Fett, yeah. So I do need approval on those. Somebody needs to motion to approve.
Brandon and Jason, do you guys have a question? No. If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the conflict of interest forms as they were presented this evening.
We have first, we have second.
I'll second.
Jan, if you would, roll call.
Brandon Elmore,
Yes.
Jason Brewer.
Yes.
Tim Heiss.
Yes.
Okay, the laundromat facade grant. Steve, I will turn this over to you. Sorry. I just, I could.
Is that in the packet? No.
Yeah, I put the stuff in how you originally did it in the packet.
Yeah, I need that. All right, so
Sorry about
this
that.
is my error from the fall. I made a terrible mathematical error based on the quote that I was originally given and what the actual invoice was. When she dropped the invoice off, and I'm not making excuses because it's my fault, but when she dropped the invoice off originally, we never discussed anything. And I just stapled it to the back of the application and I gave it to Jan to put in the council packet. I didn't realize that the quote and the invoice didn't match. She spent more money on the actual invoice than she did on the quote. So, what we need to do is increase to the $10,000 and not punish her because she wants to do more work in 2023 on the property. So I need to kind of do this retroactive.
So we're gonna award this, we'll be awarding this for 2022.
Correct.
And correcting that.
So what did we originally award her? What did we originally award?
Originally, we wrote it for $8,240.
Okay, that's what's on here. So the difference would be $1,760?
So, and again, it was my fault. I just didn't look at the paperwork. I was trying to get things cleared off my desk.
And that doesn't count towards the potential of additional
She
funding
wants
for
to
2023.
do another one this year, which she is eligible to do. She can do 2 out of every 3 years, according to the ordinance.
That makes sense to me. You guys have any issue with that?
Like I say, that was the biggest concern I had, was make sure we didn't penalize her for this year if she wanted to move forward, because I'd like to see him keep the momentum going.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
I'll make the movement. I'll move we accept the, I guess, amendment to the laundromat facade grant for 2022. To the, what was the amount, Brandon?
$1,760.
$1,760 additional.
We have first, we have a second.
I'll second.
Jan?
Brandon Elmore.
Yes.
Jason Brewer.
Yes.
Tim Heiss.
Yes.
All right. And the water rate increase, I should have those in your packets regarding what was provided by Baker Tilly.
The only thing Jan and I is going to just let you guys know is this, as hard as it is, we have to do something.
I did want to point out, last year, we had 35,000 more expenses than revenue last year for water. Now, it doesn't show that in the annual report if you looked at that, because 59,000 of the expenses to replace those hydrants didn't get paid until 2023, but the work was actually done in 2022. So last year we spent more, and we did not do, we did the hydrants, which is probably the most expensive thing, and then we had a $61,000 water main repair. And if you're looking at what they're proposing now, my understanding is there's like 40-something thousand that we have to do capital improvements this year, which is not much. And the next year, I don't think, well, unless you get grants or something like that. So we're basically gonna be relying on getting grants to do anything or funded with bonds, so, which we'll have to do anyway, so somewhat. So it's pushing it back, really. You're pushing back any money for doing anything for 3 years, I think.
That's if we don't do anything, is what you're saying?
That's
or-
if you do the plan you have now, that you wanted to
Oh.
extend it out 3 years. We're not gonna be able to do any capital improvements, that's my, well, I shouldn't say that. If we get funding, grant funding, we would be able to.
Yeah, our capital improvements, by pushing it back another 3 years, is like what was proposed, is just going to delay our projects until we are funded through grants.
Because the bonds cost us money to do too. So if you do the bond, you just have to pay them somehow. So this year we wouldn't be able to do anything. And then next year we'd have a little bit of money from this year's revenue, extra revenue. So I think that they said would pay for the payments on the bonds. And then the next year we finally have some money to start doing stuff. That's my understanding. And I could be wrong, but that's mine. Unless we get grants to fund something. But we have to do something. I mean,
Let's see, what we had was, what we were looking at was the 10%, 10%, 15% as far as what's part of this.
Yeah.
That's what it says on here. That's the phased-in 3-year approach that we're being told basically will allow us to tread water and hope for a grant
yeah.
So
or grants.
do we want to increase that?
I thought we had a good plan, honestly.
Well, I do too. I'm not,
Guys, this was the same conversation back when you guys laid out the plan, 10, 10, and 15. We're in the same situation. The reality of the conversation is we just have to tighten the straps and we have to do more with less like we're accustomed to, and we have to work hard on grants. That's the conversation.
Well,
But doing nothing anymore is not an option. We're going to have to do this on a perpetual cycle, and it's just going to constantly be happening. Everything
Yeah.
we're doing is costing more and more and more money. So I guess what I was saying is I don't think you had a bad plan to implement it, but we just have to do it on an annual basis.
And I guess my concern with even if we do a significant increase over what our plan is at this point that I propose basically, is it, even if we increased it substantially, I'm not sure, I think we're still pretty dependent on
We absolutely
grants
are.
for the type of major projects that we're looking at, because we're not looking at small projects. Are you still confident in our ability to move forward?
I'm absolutely confident, but again, it's just the day-to-day, and last year was not a typical year. I mean, we had to replace a section of water main that was underneath the railroad track. That's not a typical repair for us, but, shit happens. We still have to be prepared to deal with that.
Well,
So,
yeah, that was
and that pot of money that we have to work with is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, not because of what we're doing, it's because of what everything's costing us.
Well, I think we at the bare minimum, we need to do what we have proposed here, what we have in front of us. I think we're gonna have to do that. It's the impact, the monthly impact is not severe by any means. If you had a a $60 water bill, you're looking at a $66 water bill. And so it's not, and I think the expectation that those bills don't go up when we look at the cost of everything else we're doing. Anybody that's been to the grocery store lately can attest to that. So,
So you feel like you have a plan to move forward in which you would post for a hearing?
Is that the next steps with this? It's a
Public hearing.
Public hearing?
Correct?
Correct. I'd probably get back with Baker Tilly, but I think that is the next step. If we go with this, you have to have a public hearing, and then we
We just have to know what they're looking at for the hearing. They have to know what's being
have to get them
proposed.
back with
Gotcha.
them.
Okay.
So,
So we move
do I
forward with
go
this
ahead and
plan?
move forward with this
I'm
plan?
comfortable with moving forward. Yeah, I think, like I
Okay.
say, I think it's about as, in terms of for the ratepayer and so forth, I think this is about as painless as we're gonna be able to get. Because
Right.
it really needs to be more, but this is about as painless as we can be. And I don't think and while doing these 3 years is a good move to do that, and probably efficient, if we run into different circumstances, we can make alterations. Just have to go through the process again.
Yeah.
So you're saying it doesn't lock us into doing these 3 years? We could
can always
potentially in 2
amend
years
something.
come back
We
and-
could
or
go-
next
yeah,
year
it's
come back
just
and
gonna
say
have to-
modify it from there.
Yeah.
Which I hope that's not what we have to do.
No,
but yeah, we have the
I-
opportunity to
right.
do it if need be.
But I'd rather find out that we didn't need, I'd rather do this than find out that we increased it too much and didn't need to do that. Kind of similar to what we did with wastewater bills at one time, where we backed away slightly and it worked out quite well,
Yeah.
actually. Just
Cost was
down a lot,
mitigated over
but
time, yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
They may want to know whether, scenario B or scenario C. But maybe, would you like for her to come and explain? Because, I mean, we don't necessarily
The
have to.
scenarios are just gonna come into play though if we go to fund the project,
Yeah.
Correct.
so.
Is that for the bond funding?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to them, but we're not funding a specific project at the moment, so.
We just mainly need
It's
to.
just secondary to this. So,
Okay. Do we need to make a motion on this, or you just need to have them move
No, I
forward?
don't
Just a
think so. I'll
consensus.
just get back with her. Yeah.
Yeah.
I look forward with it. I mean, that's, I think what we
Yeah.
laid out in quite detail, in previous
Yeah.
meetings.
Okay, so we good?
Yep.
All right. Last thing on the new business, the way Warren, William, would you like to? Sure. Good.
Good evening.
Good evening. Anything that, so I think you guys were looking for a decision, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'd like to bring it to a vote. New information. The building is at 360 West Deerfield. It's the former Dollar General. 2 doors down from Save-A-Lot. Bill Troutwine owns the property.
He couldn't be here today. He had a family. Called me from Springfield this morning and actually apologized to me and told me that he's not going to be able to make the meeting. And then when he told me what was wrong, I was like, brother, they get the point. You're on board. So a deal has been struck for that property. And
It's a completely empty store when you walk in, so it is ready for us to go in and build. Compared to the church we were looking at, we would have to go in and just excavate everything and then build. So now walking in, it's ready to build to suit.
It's just wall to wall, just
pretty much.
8,000
Clean out
square
some
foot
stuff.
of a big empty 8,000 square foot space. Air conditioning works, plumbing works, electrical works. We're not even gonna have to pull the tile. We're just gonna have to paint and put offices in it. We have an architect and graphic design team coming next Monday to do the plans up for us. And 2 contractors have already offered to come in the same day and give us bids. So, well, not the same day, I apologize, later the same week on Friday.
So what is your purchase price of the building?
I won't show you my cards if you don't show
It's $225,000, but a deal has been arranged to take that in different increments at 0 interest. In addition to the $135,000 that we're getting from selling our home, we'll have $335,000 invested in Greystone's properties that will be serving Way 1. I didn't want to forget this part. We have an existing building in Winchester, Indiana. It's about 9 minutes from the mayor's office. That building is up and running. So temporarily, while that building is being finished and getting ready, we're going to operate it all out of there, continue vetting the nonprofits, bringing them on board, letting them utilize that facility until this new facility is up and running.
What's your best guess on the timeline to have this new facility completed?
People will be in the building by late summer. I'm praying for a holiday, big bonanza, grand opening, all the congregations coming together, everybody, K.I.S, local news.
That's the worst time of the year for people who are struggling, so
By Thanksgiving,
we will be having some kind of services by then.
something. Yeah, absolutely. People will be in the building and be utilizing the building. I can't guarantee that all 12 offices will be full, but I pray for at least 3 or 4. The same 3 or 4 that are going to be with us immediately at our location in Winchester. Carry them right straight back over. And both buildings will be able to utilize both facilities. There's a lot of situations where there's going to be services where they cross over. It's only 10 miles away. So you could have the counseling there. If, the wife lives over here with the daughter or whatever, they can get their services. They're separated. The husband's over here. There's a whole lot of different possibilities with those 2 locations.
What are you guys' thoughts?
Well, I'm feeling awfully light on documentation of what the stakeholders' commitments really are and where you're at on this, because
I did not print anything off, however, I sent a little bit.
Oh, I sent something over.
I did forward that to them.
Okay.
You guys did receive what I put? Yeah, okay.
Ask away, and I'll in turn put it in writing if it's necessary.
Well, it's
Yes.
we have, because you're basically asking us for funding for something that doesn't exist yet. I'll be blunt.
Yes, sir.
And so we'll tend to, support a lot of projects, but usually they're existing projects up and running, and so we know where, we have that already set. And because I don't want to be in the position where we're the make or break on a project. I'll enhance projects all day, but I don't want to be the make or break where if we're not a participant, it's not going to exist. Because then that becomes a dependency that I'm not comfortable with to make commitment to, because then if it doesn't exist, it's because we fail to support. So if that makes any sense.
Your participation is
Not if it exists or not. We can purchase the property. We can get grants for everything else. I think right now what the commitment is not making it so tight, not making it having to call people from multiple states to give us bids, which is what we've had to do because the local contractors are all 20-25% higher than traveling contractors.
We just got a large investment from our benefactor to get this going in Union City. So we have put that extra investment into this.
A lot of folks throughout the years have said that a person's level of commitment is directly reflective of their level of investment in the project, whether they're putting the hours, their blood, sweat, and tears, or their money behind it. And it's kind of hard as strangers coming into the area here. You don't know us. All I can do is give you recommendation letters, show you what our bank account statement is, that we're ready to pull the trigger. We feel it necessary to put our family's livelihood and every penny that I've ever made and ever saved in 51 years, we're putting that on the line for the citizens of Union City. We want you to participate in that. That's a big deal for us to let us know that you care as much as we do about your citizens. That's as plain as I can make it. We love you guys. I've met each one of you once or twice, and I just automatically love you guys.
We love this city, and it's, finances are numbers. We need support and love, and embrace. We need embraced to be able to make this possible. Without the community is coming together and agreeing on everything. And
$180,000 over 3 years is no token amount by any means, especially for a rural community. I can respect that. I can also assure you that every single penny will be accounted for. The books will be open to the city council anytime you want to come look. Funding can be prohibited, restricted, if there's any antics or shenanigans happening with and I can't show you exactly what you want to see. We're willing to participate with a few restrictions. We expect accountability. We expect supervision by those that are paying. It all boils down to we sold everything we had. We got rid of the Lexus, the Harley, the vacation home, the house is getting sold. Every single dime we have.
Everything of ours is in this. Every penny that we have every month is in this.
That's how much we love you and how much we obey God's calling. I'll put anything in writing that you guys request. I'm at your service. That's what we're here for. We're not here to make money. There's no money to be made in serving God's kingdom. There just isn't.
I wish I could say that we've sold everything we have and had funds in the bank to show for it. We have the help that we provide people to show for it, the facility that we have, the curriculum that we provide people, the transportation, the different vehicles we have. We have a 3-row van so that we can take people to and from doctor's appointments. All they got to do is call. I've had people call me at 3 a.m. and say, I need to go to this rehab center in this city. There's not all hospitals have a great mental health inpatient program. A lot of patients need to go to Indianapolis or Cincinnati.
Dayton.
I'll answer the call at 2 a.m. and I'll drive them there. Guess where that gas money comes from for that 2 or 3 hour drive? Our income every month. So I'm in desperate need of somebody to help me write grants because I am not well at preparing proposals. I just need guidance for that.
The person that we have that's coming on board for that is fantastic. Micah Oder's wife, Judy Oder, is an incredible woman. She's been doing it for a living. She did it for churches previously, solely as a part of the treasury portion of their ministry. And as she went on, now she's working for a large company that's all they do is underwrite for nonprofits, grant write for nonprofits. And she's coming on board, not going to be actually occupying the building until probably next year when Micah's going to be going remote. He's going to be working remotely so that she'll have the time to come up to Union City. She's amazing. She's been writing for years. She's on board.
I'll just say this. This is a service that is needed in Union City. I mean, the people of Union City need something like this. There's no denying that. I mean, there's nobody on this council, nobody in this community would say that that's not something. Just it's outside of what we need. It's something that we do need, and people would concur. I think the sticking point that we have here is this isn't something that's established. It's not something that you've grown organically. in your home or in a smaller facility where you're at the point where you need to transition to a much larger place. And that's where you're at with this. I'll just say it kind of bluntly, I don't think we're at the point where we can say we're going to invest $60,000 in this operation over the next 3 years, $180,000 total. It's something that we would look to, I think, go towards and gravitate towards in a much smaller scale to help you in this endeavor. When we start to see, success cases and things like, an established operation, that type of thing. I don't know if anybody else has thoughts.
Participation look like to Union City Council?
Well, I mean, we obviously have the opioid settlement funds. I think in the range of, what is it, 10 or 11,000, I think, per year. I think that's to come.
I don't know, Jan, do you have?
I don't know what it is per year without going back and looking. I know that I've received 17,000 of it that's in restricted, but I'm assuming that this is part of that restricted part. And then there's 7,500 that we also have that's in unrestricted. So right now we have 24,000. No, I don't know what we get every year because it's not that much every year, I don't think. I'd have to go back and look.
And I mean, there's other entities that are also getting, potential funding like that from the county and other things. Have you approached them as well, outside of?
Yes, and we've received minor grants throughout the last 2
Years from different small groups, and I can't remember the name of it escapes me right now, but yes, we I do I have a steel plate every once in a while. I go ding ding, let everybody know that it's not me, it's the plate. I can't put my finger on the exact name, but we have received small grants throughout. The largest one being about $3,500, and most of them under $750. In the $500 gift card range, $750 from here, from there. VFW's contributed. A couple congregation have contributed. Several employees at Farmers Bank have contributed. The County Planning Commission, a couple of members contributed personal funds. And
I'm not trying to tell you how to organize yourself or how to move forward, but I mean, have you thought about starting off smaller? Say, for example, in a church, that type of thing, and building up this umbrella organization that you're talking about to where it gets to the point where you need a facility that's it's going to be costly to maintain over time.
Yes, it is. That's the ask. To maintain those, that's just operating costs. We're not
looking for anything to help us build the facility or anything like that. We've taken that burden upon ourselves, and in addition to that, I don't believe it'll be 3 years. 3 years is a safety net. Chad and I had discussed this. 3 years is a safety net. That's $60,000 a year for 3 years to make sure that I'm under-promising and over-delivering.
Big grants.
That's what it's for. I don't want to tell you something that's not going to happen. I want to be able to put something into place that's going to be there perpetually after I'm gone. Even if it's not in the same location, it grows to another location. I have aspirations. This isn't the only money that's going to be invested in Union City. We also plan on sober living homes. There's a lot of things that are down the road. Right now, I understand completely you saying that maybe we're starting out too big. We have 18 people, different institutions that are all interested. We've had single meetings with all 18. We've had double meetings with about 12 of them, and there's 4 that are on board right now, plus us. That makes 5. There's only 7 more offices. We're getting there. We're getting there. We really are. We're at 5. All we need is 7 more, and then there's going to be the floaters coming in all the offices.
Big grants want you to be in operation for 2 years to apply for them. That's why we've gotten smaller grants. In April, that will be our 2-year mark. That's when
August.
August. That's when I can really start applying for those big dollar grants, and the bigger beneficiaries or the bigger organizations will give us the bigger grants. And then that will give us the benefit when we go into the new nonprofit, because we still have that track record with our Greystone nonprofit EIN to utilize for grants. So we're not going to have to start the 2 years over again when we start Wayborn. We're still going to be able to file for grants with our EIN.
I'm sure that Brother Ryan could write something into a contract that we will voluntarily pull the net, pull your $60,000 safety net per year when we've had a streak of success. 90, 120 days where we're not utilizing your funds to pay the bills, I'll pull the safety net immediately. I don't need 2 years worth of success putting Union City's money in the bank. Give me 3 or 4 months where we're paying our bills. Safety net gone. We're not going to have the building and facility open and operating 100% until the end of this year and then the beginning of next year. Safety net could be pulled as soon as next spring. We don't know. That's why we need it. We want to be sure. Our mission is to, like I said, under promise and over deliver.
Could I say something?
Absolutely,
So
Steve.
we have the opioid settlement money. What I would suggest maybe for council, because that money is not part of budgetary dollars, maybe we commit that money for a little bit longer period of time, that we can support it for a longer period of time and still maybe get most of the way there just with those dollars. We're sitting on almost $25,000 roughly at this point, and I think that they could probably have access to that because we have no other path of travel for those dollars anyway. So I think that makes sense. And then I think that enables them to get up and get running, get their feet under them. I think you guys are always approachable for a specific need, like with the Advocacy Center or whatever, the Journey Home, they've all came to the council and asked for specific things. But I think maybe the 60 grand over 3 years at 180, maybe that's too big of an ask, but maybe committing the opioid money for 10 years, maybe that helps in the same way, just spreads it out a little bit longer. I don't know. And Jan and I can pull out all those, there's like 70 pages in that packet. I can pull it out and send everybody an email in the morning and let them know exactly how much we can be expecting year after year after year from that, if that helps. I'm just throwing that out as an option.
Well, I think that helps, and one thing to consider is that balance where we're at now is if you're talking about operations being in operation in August and so forth, if you're saying that this funding is for operational funds to hold you over, that's basically going to be those operational funds for the rest of this year, for example, and then we can view. I think it's going to be a lot easier to commit to something like that to begin with, and then follow through at a later date once things are in operation, and we say we have a better picture of what we're looking at. Because I think that's the tough thing is it's still not a clear
Sounds like
picture.
a great compromise to be perfectly honest. I'll go one step further.
And revisit this next January, when the beginning of the new year, if you'd like. The opioid funding, whatever you have for the time being, and then we can revisit for further funding at the first of the next year if you'd like. I respect his compromise for lengthening and reducing the amount annually and lengthening it. Primarily what we need from you guys is utilities, insurance, gas for the vehicles, and that's not really going to total up to $60,000. Again, I under promise and over deliver. We can make it work for less, obviously, because we could make it work without it if we absolutely had to, but it'd be tough. It would be really tough, and we don't want to go into a situation where we're struggling. It's hard enough to help people in need. It's hard enough to help folks that are desperate, And when you're trying to do it with 20 bucks in your pocket instead of a gas card, people need to get to work. People need to eat. And we would be cutting it very close, and the purse strings would be tight. We would have no money for extra expenditures. With this funding, it would enable us to actually do the work. Instead of preparing for the work, and instead of building a place for the work, we could actually be out doing the work while the work is happening at the facility. If we were to do this on our own, we'd probably be looking at next summer for our opening. This would cut the time in half. Time matters.
Feel like before we make a commitment this evening, we need to verify what those funds are so we can put an amount on it.
I have the spreadsheet in my desk drawer, but I didn't think to bring it.
So I think we need to have we need to be able to, because we should commit to a number on that, a hard number, not
I
our
don't.
guess.
What I will tell you is I think it changes every year.
Well, yeah, I mean, as far as this year.
Well, I mean, what we got this year, we already have.
Okay.
This is last year's money, what I told you.
Okay, well,
is what we had last
okay,
year. I don't know
that's
what we
fine.
did
I want to
this
make
year.
sure we have a number to commit to before we pass a
Yeah, 'cause I
resolution,
don't
before
know.
we pass anything. If you have that number,
I don't.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll confirm that. I'll send
Okay.
everybody an email in the morning.
okay.
I'll give you an idea of what we get every year.
I really do. I appreciate the opportunity to serve. I'm grateful for trying to find common ground and trying to find a more affordable
Resolution, and we're eager to serve. We're kind of holding up giving Bill Trotwine the check for the property until you guys make a decision. So I guess we're not voting until next month, right? The next meeting.
So I feel like, or do you guys feel like we can, how do you feel about committing? I'm just not, I just want to put the dollar amount on it.
I would like
What do you?
all 5 of us here
Okay.
to commit to something,
I think that's good.
which should be at the next meeting.
We're short 2 council members this evening. which is
I
fine.
think I was missed one.
I didn't know that there was 2 missing.
Yes. One out of town, one out of Lawson family, so. But.
Is that fair? I think
think-
that have all 5 of us here on this decision.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. You guys have anything else you wanted to share? Okay.
I appreciate the opportunity. Have a blessed evening.
Thank you.
Do you have any visitors left?
Just my wife.
Can't imagine you're wanting to extend the meeting. The day of the next council meeting is Monday, February 27th at 6 p.m. The Board of Works is also Monday, February 27th, and that's at 1 p.m. I would hereby entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
We have first, we have a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.